I'm a bad motherfucker.
Me.
Hi, welcome back to the thing. Hope you enjoyed our little infomercial with our satellite. I'm actually thinking about getting a satellite phone now. I hope he sends me one. I wasn't kidding.
I think he will.
Anyway, Scott Ritter's here. He's a one-time Marine intelligence officer who served in the former Soviet Union, implementing arms control agreements. And from 1991 to 1998, he served as the chief inspector for the United States in Iraq, leading the search for Iraq's prescribed weapons of mass destruction. He was later a vocal critic of the American decision to go to war in Iraq. He's also the author of 9 books, including his latest, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, Arms Control, and the End of the Soviet Union. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Scott Ritter.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
So, Scott, you wrote this. I read this last night before I went to bed. It's good nighttime reading. It's the Missiles of April, and it says Iran's retaliatory attack on Israel will go down in history as one of the greatest victories in this century. Now, before we get to you talking about that, I wanted to show you that. So, Israel attacked the Iranian embassy in Damascus and killed some top officials in the military of Iran. So they get to respond under the international law. And so they did. And this is from Uncover News. It says, outstanding video of Iran targeting Israel's air defense system. Iranian missiles with decoy bomblets are first deployed, and then several ballistic missiles hit their intended target. So here, are we allowed to show this? Let's see. Let's see. So here's all the. So there's all the missiles coming in, right? So they're trying to overwhelm
Iron Dome?
the Iron Dome, right? And now Israel said they got 99% of the missiles they knocked down, but as this video is going to show in a second here, a couple of them got through, at least a couple. So come on, this is taking forever, for F's sake. Oh, here we go. So look, it got through. And I think, oop, there's another one got through. Here comes another one. Boom, here comes another one. So looks like there's a little rust in that Iron Dome is what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. So I don't need to show you that. So here's Ali Bumana says that here's why you shouldn't believe Israel's claim that most missiles were shot down and damage was minor. Iran hit military targets, so we won't see the damage. Remember what Nasrallah said a few weeks ago: if Hezbollah didn't film its successful operations, no one would believe them. And here's what you said. You said eye for an eye. Iran struck Nevatim Air Base with now that's the base that there's 2 bases that Israel launched the attacks on the consulate, the Iranian consulate in Syria, and that was one of them. So that at least 7 of its new hypersonic missiles. Nevatim is home of the F-35 fighters that attacked the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Not a single Iranian missile was intercepted. Let that sink in. Israel is defenseless. And then you modified that statement. You said the drones and missiles designed to overwhelm the Israeli defenses did their job. 40 million of hardware cost Israeli and its allies billions. None of the missiles that were intended to make impact were intercepted. Percentages don't matter. Is that true? So you're saying, so tell me what exactly Iran did and how they were so successful.
Well, let's start with the Nevatim Air Base, home of Israel's F-35I, their modified F-35 fighters. These are the fighters that bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus in violation of international law. But it's home to more than that. It's home to America's ANTPY-2 X-band radar, the most sophisticated anti-ballistic missile defense radar in the world. We have it there. This is the radar designed to detect Iranian missile launches from Iran. It's tied into our satellite network that monitors Iran continuously, any launch, any activity. The point I'm trying to make is that we have given Israel perfect ability to monitor Iran's missiles. Israel can't be taken by surprise. Anything Iran does Israel will know. This surveillance technology is linked to the most sophisticated anti-ballistic missile defenses in the world. The Arrow 2, the Arrow 3, David Sling. These are all U.S.-Israeli projects. The improved Patriot, the THAAD missile system, which is an American-only missile system. We've deployed all these around Nevatim. My point is, Nevatim is the most heavily secured spot on the planet. The most heavily secured spot on the planet when it comes to anti-ballistic missile defense. There's no place on Earth more heavily defended than Nevatim. And Iran launched, we now have updates, 7 missiles against Nevatim. 5 of them hit their target. The most heavily defended spot on the world, in the world, right there, everything, the best. Nobody has better equipment than what's there. Iran launched 7 missiles against that base. 5 of them hit their target. That means that Israel is defenseless. It means America is defenseless. It means if Iran wanted to have saturated that base with missiles, they would have destroyed everything. Iran was simply making a point. They didn't want to destroy the base. They wanted to prove to Israel that we can touch you anytime we want to.
Did did they not know this?
Now, the United States and Israel operate under the assumption that they have technological supremacy, that our technology is better than anything the Iranians can have. That video that you showed 2 missile types. First of all, understand that Iran did not use its latest technology. The missiles that were shown there, the newest one is about 7 years old. The other one is about a dozen years old. But first of all, you have the warhead that shoots the bomblets out. This is designed to dazzle a radar, meaning that the radar's tracking this system in. The first thing that happens is the warhead separates from the missile body. That drives the radar crazy now because it's tracking 2 things instead of 1. One is now spinning out of control larger. They're trying to track that. The other one, smaller, is moving in. So they have to pick which target's the priority. They pick the smaller target. So now they come in, they start calibrating, and they start launching their missiles to take it out. And suddenly that warhead shoots off a whole bunch of bomblets that simulate the warhead. The radar goes crazy now. Instead of 1, there's like 20. And it's going, what the hell do we hit now? What the hell do we hit now? And then to confuse it even more, that warhead waits, and then ignites its own motor and shoots through. And what you saw up there was all the bomblets getting hit. And then that warhead shoots through. And at the last second, if you slow that down, you'll see that the warhead came in, it tucked up, went in, tucked up, it maneuvered in to hit the target. It can't be shot down. That's what the Israelis did. The second, and they used another maneuvering warhead to strike the base in Nevatim. These are good warheads that the Iranians have. They're better than our ability to shoot them down, but they're not the best that Iran has. Iran has hypersonics. What I found out later on, initially there was talk that hypersonic missiles were used. The Iranians have clarified that and said we didn't use any of our hypersonic missiles. If they had used hypersonic missiles, they would come in extraordinarily fast, not using a ballistic arc with maneuvering warhead. You wouldn't have seen them. They would have just hit the ground and blown up.
So what you're saying is a hypersonic missile travels so fast you can't track it.
The radar that we have used is designed to track a ballistic trajectory or a slower moving linear trajectory. It's not designed to track something that's coming in at the advanced speeds that the hypersonic is. Plus, at the end, when they separate that warhead and it accelerates on its own, maneuvering, the radar can't track it. So literally, it will come flying under the radar and blow up whatever it aims at. The Iranians have shown that the precision of their missiles, the guidance is within a meter. So within 1 meter of what they want to hit, they're going to hit it.
So this does not bode well for Israel. I mean, to say the least, right?
Right.
Well, what it does is it demonstrates to Israel and the United States, because remember, Iran was sending the signal to everybody.
Right.
That Iran now has what's called deterrence superiority. They could even have deterrence supremacy. What they're saying is, you can't attack us without consequence. If you attack us, if you attack our territory, and now what Iran has said is you attack us anywhere. They've taken the American posture. You know how America says if you blow up one of our bases in Syria and you kill 3 American soldiers, we will hit you. What Iran's saying now is if Israel bombs an Iranian position in Syria, even though it's not an embassy or a consulate, Iran will retaliate. There's no more freebies. There's no free pass. There's no more Israel doing whatever it wants to do against Iran. If Israel or anybody attacks Iran anywhere inside Iran or outside of Iran, Iran has now established a precedent that says we will hit you with missiles that you can't defend yourself against.
So this happened before Iran attacked a United States military base, right? Now, I think this was in 2019? 2020? Okay. So here's the New York Times headline. It says, urged to launch an attack, Trump listened to the skeptics who said it would be a costly mistake. He heard from his generals and his diplomats, lawmakers weighed in, and so the same thing that Israel's facing right now, the United States faced before from. So this idea, I think a lot of people, certainly like Lindsey Graham, think that we could just go in and wipe out Iran very easily. But even back when Trump was president, he realized that he couldn't. And it says, but among the voices that rang powerful so that's when he was watching Tucker Carlson. While national security advisors were urging a military strike against Iran, Mr. Carlson in recent days had told Mr. Trump that responding to Tehran's provocations with force was crazy. Belligerent and confrontational as he is in public, Mr. Trump has at times pulled back from the use of force, convinced that America has wasted too many lives and too much money in pointless Middle East wars, and wary of repeating what he considers the mistakes of his predecessors. As Mr. Carlson and other skeptics have argued, a strike against Iran could easily spiral into a full-fledged war without easy victory that Mr. Trump was told was everything he ran against. So
there's a backstory to this, though.
Okay, what is the backstory?
That's all BS. I mean, I'm sure Tucker Carlson had that conversation with him and everything, but the real conversation took place between Trump and his generals. You see, after Trump assassinated Qasem Soleimani in January of 2020, the Iranians told the United States that they will be striking the Al-Assad air base where the drones were taken off that killed. They gave the Americans advance notice so America could get its troops out of the way. They fired at least 10 missiles, and when the United States looked, the missiles hit every building on the base, every major building, destroyed them, huge craters. And at that point in time, the United States realized that they can't shoot down these missiles, and these missiles hit what they were aimed at. Later on, when Iran shot down the Global Hawk drone over the Strait of Hormuz, which is accused of coming into its territory, Trump was demanding that America bomb Iranian air defense sites in Iran. And that time, the Pentagon came up and said, we can do that. But understand, the moment we do that, Iran will flatten all of our bases in the region, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. And then if you want to escalate further, they'll shut down the Strait of Hormuz, choking off our oil. And then if you want to escalate further, we're going to have to mobilize troops that we don't have in the region. It's going to take 12 months to get enough troops. We're going to bring them in on ships that are going to get sunk before they come there. This is going to turn into a war that's going to last 5 years with no guarantee of American victory. Do you really want to retaliate against an Iranian air defense site? And that's when the president said, no, I don't. But because he couldn't admit that he stood down, he started making things up about how he was a humanist. He didn't want to bring in casualties. The crowds not to go to war. But he's really just a man who was confronted with the harsh truth that America no longer has the non-nuclear capacity to intimidate a nation like Iran.
And do you think, does Iran have nuclear bombs, you think?
No, actually, Iran doesn't, and Iran's made a point not to have that. I actually had a conversation with the Iranian president earlier, or late in the middle of last year, when he was in New York, and I asked him about, why doesn't Iran pursue nuclear weapons for deterrence, and what about Iran's ballistic missile program? The world is concerned about that, and he said that Iran will never have a nuclear weapons program, that they don't believe in nuclear weapons, but that their ballistic missiles are their deterrence, that their ballistic missile capability is so strong that they will deter. And at the time I said, but how does the world know they're strong? And he said, when the time comes, the world will find out. The world just found out.
And so what do you think was... So do you think Israel was striking the consulate, the Iranian consulate in Syria? Because they bombed Syria a lot. They bombed it on the regular. But this was an escalation because that embassy is seen as Iran property, right? That's like bombing Iran. And they hadn't done that before, but they had bombed other places inside Syria that they thought were working or with Iran. So this was definitely an escalation. Why do you think they wanted to escalate? Was it to create a wider war? What was the point of them doing this?
No, I think that the Israelis, first of all, they bombed it because there was a meeting taking place inside that consulate of Iran's top military leadership involved in planning the axis of resistance activities against Israel regarding Gaza. The man who ran the resupply of Hamas, the man who coordinated with Hezbollah, the man who coordinated with the Iraqi militias, the man who coordinated with the Houthi. They all came together for this strategy session on what the next phase of the conflict would look like. Israel found out about this and said, we need to take them out. They knew that they were hitting an embassy situation, but remember, this is an Israel that has assassinated Iranian nuclear scientists in Tehran. They've sent assassins in to kill them. They're not Israeli assassins, they're agents working for Israel. They also sent people in to blow up Iranian factories. They've been attacking Iranian generals and officers in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq with impunity. And I think they believed that Iran had been intimidated, that Iran wouldn't retaliate, that Iran was scared to retaliate. And so they felt that they could carry out this action and that Iran wouldn't do anything in retaliation. I think Israel was shocked when Iran said, not only will we retaliate, but when they actually retaliated, they saw the scope and scale of the retaliation. But the biggest shock was when 5 missiles hit the place that no missiles are supposed to ever hit Nevatim airfield. And that's unthinkable. Every missile defense system that Israel has, and including the defense systems that America has, we're defending that base with the best radars, the best surveillance and tracking capability, and they couldn't shoot down the Iranian missiles.
Well, am I wrong to feel that this actually gives me hope that there won't be a World War III starting in the Middle East? Am I wrong to think that?
You would be absolutely correct to think that, except we have to throw in a wild card here, and that's called Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition government in Israel. You see, Netanyahu is under pressure. He governs with this coalition that's a very narrow coalition, and it's held together only by these extremists who demand that Israel not only commit genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza, but that Israel also flex its muscle abroad that Israel retains deterrence supremacy, that no nation would dare attack Israel. On October 7th, he also showed himself to be a failure as the leader of Israel when Hamas carried out an attack, proving that Israel's military wasn't as good as they thought it was. His military has floundered in Gaza, and now the Iranians have attacked Israel. He is in a lot of trouble if he doesn't find a way to look strong. And so right now there's a game being played in the war cabinet where the entire war cabinet and the entire Israeli military is demanding that they retaliate against Iran. And now the question is, will Netanyahu yield to their demands, or will he listen to Joe Biden, who's saying, don't do this, and tell his cabinet, America stopped me? This is about Netanyahu's political survival. This is about the narcissism of a man who puts his political future, his political viability above the security of his nation and the security of the world. He's willing to sacrifice global security because if Iran strikes Israel again, it'll be of such a magnitude that the United States will have no choice but to step in. Then Iran attacks America. Now, next thing we know, the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, oil production facilities are bombed, and we have a global economic crisis that'll last decades. This is the consequences of Netanyahu's irresponsible behavior. So normally I'd agree with you and I'd say, go to bed tonight, sleep well. I'm going to be tossing and turning like you've never seen a person tossing and turning before, because I'm very concerned what's going to happen tonight. I'm very concerned that Netanyahu is going to put his personal political ambition above everything else and launch a retaliation against Iran. And the Iranians have already said, the moment your airplanes take off, we will send our missiles. They're not even going to wait for Israel to come and hit them. The moment the airplanes take off, Iran is going to retaliate.
So here's what Joe Biden had to say.
We are devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel. We will help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed.
So Iran has already succeeded, correct?
Yeah. Iran has succeeded in establishing its own version of deterrent supremacy, and it worked because the United States. What he did, what he said after that is, we will not participate in offensive action against Iran, because the United States knows that they do participate in offensive action against Iran. Every American base in the Middle East will be hit with missiles that we can't stop, and missiles that will destroy whatever they're aiming at. All those billions of dollars of airplanes we have at AlBundyShoes Air Base in Qatar will be destroyed. What we have in Kuwait will be destroyed. The Fifth Fleet in Bahrain destroyed. We can't defend them. We are incapable of defending them. He knows that. So he's limiting his words to, we will defend Israel, meaning that if Iran attacks Israel, we will defend Israel, but we will not go to war against Iran for Israel. That's because Iran has established deterrence supremacy over the United States. The United States is afraid to attack Iran directly.
Now, you tweeted this out also. You said Ben Gurion Airport has resumed normal operations. There will be no Israel response. The crisis is over. Do you still feel that way?
Well, I felt that way on April 13th at 10:44 p.m. Because you don't go to war with your airport open, but the first thing that happens before missiles fly is you close your airspace, you terminate airport operations, no airplanes take off, no airplanes come in, you send the kids home, you put them in bunkers, and then you go to war. So when Israel said, we're going to let the kids out of the bunkers, we're reopening school, and Ben Gurion Airport is resuming normal operations, at that time I said Israel will not be launching an immediate counterattack, and I was correct. The problem is, as Israel reflects on what Iran has done and what Iran has accomplished, it scares them to death, and they are very afraid of yielding the deterrent supremacy to Iran. And politically, that's very difficult for Netanyahu to do. And so he is under growing pressure from his cabinet, from the military, to do something in retaliation. That they can't just absorb this attack; they have to do something in retaliation. And now I'm very worried. Now, at the moment, Ben Gurion Airport is still open. But I will tell you what, the moment you get a tweet that says Israel's closing airspace, it's all over. The war is going to start.
So I want to get your reaction to this. Israel journalist Ronan Bergman has a remarkable quote from a source with knowledge of Israeli discussions on Iran. And the quote is this: if the talks were broadcast live on YouTube, you'd have 4 million people clamoring at Ben Gurion Airport trying to get out of here. What's your response to that?
He's 100% correct. Right now, the Israeli military, they're very capable. From 1994 to 1998, I worked with Israeli intelligence, the Amman, and I worked with their technical directorate. These are the guys who are the missile experts. Their job is to take the debris, to evaluate the photographs, and sort of reconstruct the capability. I worked with them on doing that with the Iraqi missile capability. These are the guys that right now are evaluating what Iran just did. And they are briefing their leadership about the Iranian warheads, about the performance of the missiles, and how this performance makes it impossible for intercept. There's not an intercept solution. The second people hear that, they realize that Israel is defenseless. And at that point in time, 4 million Israelis who have foreign passports, who are dual citizens, will get out of the country because Israel cannot survive. They will recognize that Israel is not the land of milk and honey, that Israel is going to be a smoking ruin if they go to war. And then the other thing that these guys are telling the Israeli leadership is that while Iran may have fired 100 missiles at them, I'm not counting the drones, Iran has 3,000 in reserve, meaning that Iran can do this over and over and over and over again until there's nothing left in Israel. And again, that's what the Israeli leadership is hearing. If they broadcast that on TV, every single one of those dual passport holding Israeli heroes would suddenly realize that they didn't want to be Israeli anymore, and they'd be fleeing home to their parent country.
Yeah, sure. Israel first, unless there's actual shit going down. And then I'm getting the hell out of here.
Unless you have to die for it, yeah.
So would it be in everyone's interest to let the Israeli people and the press and Benjamin Netanyahu say that the Iron Dome worked and only 1%, we got 99% of the missiles, and so they could declare victory, so they could save face, so they wouldn't have to launch a response? Is that possible?
That was the American objective. If you noticed immediately, the United States was saying, we shot down 99% of these things. We blew everything up. There's nothing happening. What got through didn't do any damage. This is the biggest victory in the world. Israel has done the greatest victory in the world. It's wonderful. Hoorah. We don't even have to worry about those Iranians. They gave us their best shot. We went into the ring. They hit us with everything they have, their Sunday punch, and it glanced off the chin. Now the Iranians realize they can't do anything. They're hiding in their corner, and they've conceded the ring to us. They didn't answer the bell. That's what they should be saying right now. And but the problem is the Israeli leadership knows the truth. And Israel is a democracy still, and the press will find out the truth. And eventually the leadership will be confronted with the fact that the exact opposite is what happened. And that's what's happening now. Their leadership understands that all of Israel knows that Iran can destroy them, and that if they want to stay in power, they're going to have to demonstrate to the Iranians that the price Iran will pay for attacking Israel is prohibitively high.
So this is from 8 a.m. yesterday, Sunday, the 14th of April. Breaking news. Confrontation with Iran is not over yet, says Israeli defense minister. The confrontation between Iran and Israel is not over yet, Israel's defense minister said on Sunday following Tehran's attack on Israel the previous night. Quote, the state of Israel was attacked with hundreds of missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles, and the Israeli Defense Force thwarted this attack in an impressive manner, Gallant said, urging Israelis to remain alert and attentive to the instructions published by the IDF and Home Front Command. The defense minister stressed that Israel must be prepared for every scenario. Together with the United States and additional partners, we managed to defend the territory of the state of Israel. Very little damage was caused. This is the result of the IDF's impress. So this is exactly what we were just talking about, right? So this is the story they're giving. The story is that we won this. Iran didn't do anything. It was a glancing blow. And so let me just, here's what David Sachs, he tweeted this out. These are the two possibilities that could happen. Israel strikes back hard. The regional war begins. The U.S. gets dragged in to help Israel, not with boots on the ground, but in every other way. Netanyahu was comfortable with this scenario, or he wouldn't have bombed the Iranian embassy on April 1st. Hawks in Washington, who have sought war with Iran for 2 decades, are euphoric. Both Ukraine and Israel get funding, but U.S. stockpiles are already stretched thin, so hard trade-offs must be made. In particular, there just aren't enough air defense missiles to go around. Both wars go from bad to worse, and Biden loses in November, or Biden tells the Israelis not to retaliate, using all of his leverage to make them stand down. The choice should be obvious, but Biden may not be capable of executing option 2, so war it is. What do you think? Now, but Biden is it's already been public that he said he's not going to go on the offensive against Iran, but he will help Israel defend from incoming. What do you think is going on, and what's going to happen with Biden?
Well, the option 1 that he put up there dealt primarily with American domestic prerogatives, meaning what America will do, etc. They're missing a point in that analysis. Understand that right now Benjamin Netanyahu has lost the confidence of his country, his cabinet, his war cabinet, his ministers. In any normal nation, he would be tossed out on his ear. But also that if he gets tossed out, he'll be arrested immediately, charged with corruption. He has indictments hanging over his head, put on trial. He'll lose that trial and will spend the rest of his life in jail. He's 76 years old in poor health. It's a death sentence to go to jail for him. His only chance to stay in power is to have Israel stay at war. Israel has lost Gaza. Understand that. Everybody needs to understand that they have lost the Gaza conflict. And if he accepts the ceasefire that he's being pressured to accept, that's an admission of defeat, and he will be kicked out of office. His only chance to stay viable is to have a broader conflict, a broader war. The broader war with Iran does a couple things. 1, it keeps him in power as the wartime leader. 2, it changes the entire discussion about what's going on in the Middle East right now. For all the people out there in the street demonstrating for Palestine right now, and I applaud them all, I really do. But what happens when the price of oil, the price of gas at the pump goes from $4, where it is right now, to $12, to $15, to $20? What happens when there's no food? And do you remember the trucker crisis that we had last year?
Yes.
Where in Long Beach, and how suddenly shelves were empty and there was no food because the truckers weren't getting it there? What happens when there's no diesel gas? The trucks can't run, nothing gets delivered, the shelves are empty. What happens when all these Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck suddenly see all the prices go insane, their paycheck doesn't alter, they miss their mortgage, they suddenly are homeless in the streets? All these people that are demonstrating for Palestine will be worrying about something totally different, which is their individual survival. And this is what the Iranians fear, this is what the Palestinians fear. Right now, Iran's winning the war. They've turned the tables on Israel. The Houthi are strangling Israel. The Palestinian cause is being heralded everywhere. Israel has been turned into a pariah nation. But if Israel flips the script now, this becomes a larger battle between Israel and Iran, and there's now an energy crisis, a global energy crisis. That's the problem that needs to be solved. And Palestine could find itself being sacrificed at the negotiating table. And this is what Netanyahu is looking at. He's trying desperately to find a path to political survival. And a war with Iran is the only available path to him right now. And this is what I said. This narcissist is willing to sacrifice global security for the chance to stay in political power for another 6 months to a year.
So Max Blumenthal actually tweeted out something that supports what you're saying. He said Israel's 98th Division has withdrawn from Khan Yunis. Refugees are returning en masse to northern Gaza, where bakeries are reopening. Hamas still stands, and hostages have not been freed. Haaretz and the Wall Street Journal now assess that Israel has lost in Gaza or is on the brink of total defeat. And here is so it's just wild that Hamas, which was created by Israel, has defeated Israel. I guess that fits perfectly with their other tactics. So here's one headline he tweeted out saying what can't be said. Israel has been defeated, a total defeat. The war's almost aims won't be achieved. The hostages won't be returned through military pressure. Security won't be restored, and Israel's international ostracism won't end. Here's one more. We've lost. Truth must be told. The inability to admit it encapsulates everything you need to know about Israel's individual and mass psychology. There's a clear, sharp, predictable reality that we should begin to fathom, to process, to understand, and to draw conclusions from for the future. It's no fun to admit that we've lost, so we lie to ourselves. So, and here's one more. Israel wins battle, but risks war loss. Here's another one. Israel faces potential loss in war.
It's quicker than Ukraine.
So this seems, how do we go from a genocide to Israel losing?
Well, I mean, Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinians, but I will tell you that, and this I get in trouble sometimes saying this, but I'm very cynical, but this was part of the plan of Hamas all along. Everybody knew what Israel was going to do. Anybody who pretended that Israel wasn't going to come in and slaughter the Palestinian people if they haven't been studying what Israel's done in Gaza over the years. Hamas went in, defeated Israel, embarrassed Israel, then lured them into Gaza knowing that Israel would do exactly what they do because they understood that there could never be a Palestinian state unless international public opinion turned on Israel. And the best way to get international public opinion to turn on Israel is to let Israel be Israel, to let Israel do what it's naturally inclined to do, which is slaughter civilians. So they did that. They committed this horrific genocide. And then Hamas didn't yield. Hamas didn't bend. Hamas will accept no temporary ceasefire. Hamas won't return the hostages. Israel kills more civilians, more civilians, more civilians. Public opinion turns. Hamas still exists. They still fight. They won't surrender. And the end result is that Israel lost. Israel lost.
Wow, that is what they call 4D chess, I guess. Right? I did not. I thought that Israel was going to. I thought they had gotten rid of the Palestinians in northern Gaza. and then they were going to try to find a place to get rid of the rest of them. I thought they were going to take it over and start putting up condos, and but that's
Well,
not. I did.
Jared Kushner thought so too.
Yeah, I know. I saw that video. So I guess they should just team up with Zelensky and form Israel Ukraine, and and then with the winning streak they're on, go to Reno and play at the tables, because this is not. This kind of stunning to all of a sudden like that. Iran is got this what do you call it? This defense supremacy. What is the word you use?
Deterrence?
Deterrent supremacy.
Yeah.
We're afraid to go to war with Iran, and all of a sudden Hamas won this war because they wanted to win the psychological warfare with the world, and it won. It worked. Now everybody looks at it worked on me because I was not very informed about the Israel-Palestine conflict until October 7th, and then after that, I didn't know anything about the Balfour Declaration. I didn't know anything about the Nakba. I didn't know anything about.
On purpose, I didn't know.
I didn't. I guess I didn't know anything about anything. But now I know all these things. I didn't know what Zionism really was. I didn't know that Zionists weren't. I didn't know that the most religious Jews are against the state of Israel. Right. I didn't know all of that stuff. And now I do know all this stuff, and it happened because they started to commit a genocide in Palestine, and so would you consider that? I mean, they had to sacrifice 30 to 40,000 of their own people to win this battle. I mean, this war, Hamas. Would you consider that successful or psychopathic, or what would you consider it? Anything?
Well, first of all, when we're talking about war, we're already talking about a dynamic that normalizes the taking of human life. So if that's not psychopathic, there's nothing that is. It's impossible to defend war from a moral premise. I mean, I'm somebody who's not a pacifist, and I've been to war, and I would go to war again. But I'll tell you straight up, war is evil, and that's why I fight so hard to do everything possible to prevent a war, so we don't have to go to war, because I know what war does. I know what it's about. But if you're going to go to war, you need to win. If you're going to sacrifice human life, if you're going to do these horrible things, it has to be in a cause worthy of the sacrifice. And from Hamas's perspective, getting a Palestinian state is worthy of that sacrifice. Now, you say, is it sick to talk about 30,000 dead or 40,000 dead? I'll take you back in time. 1944, Charles de Gaulle, the head of the Free French, was approached by Dwight D. Eisenhower and the Allied leadership saying, we're going in to Normandy. We're beginning the invasion of France. To liberate Normandy, we will probably kill 80 to 120,000 French civilians. They were letting de Gaulle know that. And de Gaulle signed off on that operation. It turned out we only killed 60,000 French civilians to liberate Normandy. Charles de Gaulle never attended a D-Day anniversary celebration because it sickened him, because of what the sacrifice that he had to sign off on. He had to authorize the murder of 60,000 French civilians to begin the process of liberating France. But if you believe in freedom, if you believe that France needed to be liberated from the Nazis, then you had to be willing to undertake that sacrifice. From Hamas's standpoint, and the standpoint of many Palestinians, the deaths of these civilians are deaths that have to take place if you're going to have a Palestinian state, because otherwise those people would live as slaves under Israeli occupation. They had a choice to live as slaves or to sacrifice their lives to produce a Palestinian state. And now it looks like they're going to eventually get a Palestinian state.
So you think that? So you think that's it's because I saw people who were Condoleezza Rice advisors going on MSNBC. Richard Haas, for F's sake, went on MSNBC and said we need to start sanctioning Israel. I mean, that's I would never have imagined that in my life. So they did lose the hearts and minds of the world, right? And months ago there was an Israeli think tank that did a study of all the protests over Israel-Palestine conflict, and they concluded 95% of those protests were pro-Palestine. That was months ago. So it could only have gotten, it got worse. It got to the point where Condoleezza Rice advisors and Richard Haas are going on MSNBC saying we have to sanction Israel.
I'm predisposed, or I've always been predisposed to just believe Israel.
What do you mean?
The whole time up until October 7th, if I think about it, it's always like, there's always some kind of reason why it's like, they probably have to do that. I don't want to know too many more details. When we had Norman Finkelstein on, that was the first time somebody really explained what Gaza was to me, ever. Like, I've never understood what it was until he came on.
Right. And until this, I didn't understand anything about it either. I understood very little. I had covered it before. I'd covered some of the mowing the lawn, as they call it, and how they targeted
the calorie thing.
Yeah, the calorie thing. And so I knew that they were the occupiers, and they have a greater responsibility actually than the people they're occupying. So they lost. So you really think there's going to be a Palestinian state now because of what Benjamin Netanyahu, because of their overreach, because of what they did? You think there's going to be a Palestinian state?
I think there's a greater prospect for a Palestinian state today than there was on October 6th. And that's solely because of Hamas's actions and Israel's overreaction. Let's be honest. If Israel had gone in there and done what any normal military does, they would have probably killed 5,000 Palestinian civilians, and the world would have accepted that. It's just the way that Israel went about killing. You're familiar with Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old girl that was on the phone begging for help?
So go ahead and tell. Yes, I am. It's an unbelievably horrific story, especially when people say that the IDF, the Israeli soldiers, are the most moral military in the world. Tell this story, and this will disabuse you of that stupid idea.
On January 29th, the Israelis sent out a message to the Palestinian civilians living in Gaza City in the north that you have to leave. And so a family, the uncle, an aunt, their 3 children, and then 2 cousins, a 15-year-old cousin and 6-year-old Hind Rajab, got in their black Kia and started driving south on the route that the Israelis said you need to flee on. They got to a roundabout just south of Gaza City when they were fired on by an Israeli tank, killing the father, the mother, the 3 kids, and severely wounding Hind and her 15-year-old cousin. Now, before we get to the next step, I just want you to understand that Israel has a communications intelligence capability. They listen to every phone call made in Gaza. Every single phone call is listened to, not recorded and listened to later, but real-time intelligence. They have people sitting there listening to every phone call. So now 15-year-old cousin, Leyland, gets on the phone and calls her relatives and says, I'm hurt. Hind and I have been wounded. We're wounded bad. We're bleeding. Everybody else is dead. The Israelis are listening to this. They're listening to this phone call as she begs for help. They put her in touch with the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, and she tells them where they're at. They're trying to talk, and all of a sudden she says the tanks are coming, and you hear the machine gun fire rip through the car, rip through her body, and kill her while she's on the phone asking for help. Now the phone line goes dead. They think that's it. 30 minutes later, a 6-year-old girl's voice gets on the phone. Hind Rajab. I'm hurt, she says. Everybody's covered with blood. Please come and get me. Please come save me. She talks to people. They put her in touch with her mother. Mommy, I'm scared. Mommy, I'm scared. Come and save me, Mommy. 6-year-old girl. The Israelis are listening to this as the 6-year-old girl prays for help, begs for help. They then get her in touch with the Red Cross. The Red Cross is frantically contacting the Israelis saying, a mistake has been made, mistake has been made. We want to send in medics to rescue this 6-year-old girl who's begging for help. The Israelis say, okay. They give them a map and show the route they're on. The medics get in there, 2 very brave men, and drive this route. They're on the phone the whole time, coordinating. Hind is on the phone. They're saying, don't worry, Hind, help is coming. The guys are on the phone. We're 50 meters away, they say on the phone. 50 meters away, we see the car. We see her. But the Israelis are there. Green lights are dancing on our bodies. Those are the dots from the sights, laser sights, as the Israelis opened fire and killed the 2 medics. They lured the medics in using a 6-year-old girl as bait, and then they killed the 6-year-old girl. The most moral army in the world? No, these are pathetic psychopathic murderers. They did it because they treat all Palestinians as human animals. That's the language that their prime minister uses, their minister of defense uses, their military uses. They slaughtered this innocent 6-year-old girl. They used her as bait to lure her in, 2 heroic medics, and they killed them too. And this happens every single day in Gaza. This is not an army worthy of the American people's support. These are the worst people in the world, the worst people in the world, and we fund them. We sit there, the hypocrisy of America, to drop 35,000 rations from an airplane using pallets that plummet to the ground and kill Palestinians on the ground, while at the same time we provide the same day, we provide the Israelis with thousands of 2,000-pound bombs that they then turn around and blow up the civilians in Gaza. The Israelis lure the Palestinians in with food shipments. The hundreds of Palestinians come in, and then they drop a bomb on the food shipment to kill the Palestinians. It's genocide. It's criminal. It's happening. These are not good people. This is not the most moral army in the world.
No,
that Amalek thing, when they started calling him Amalek, you know, the Bible story of the Amalekites, King Saul was commanded to kill, he was commanded to genocide them, even their animals, the men, women, children, the animals, and he got in trouble because he saved some of the women and animals for himself. That's why they're calling them that, so they can do stuff like that's why you can justify that. These are this is the Amalekites. Yep. That's how you justify it.
Oh, so they're using the Bible. That's how they use.
Those are the worst people. Those are people so bad. That's like worse than Sodom and Gomorrah.
Really?
Like, or as on par, I guess. Like that's, I think her name means like the blood lickers or something. But King Saul got in trouble for not killing all their livestock even and keeping some of it.
Really?
Yeah. God said you have to kill everything they just touched. You have to like wipe everything out. He didn't. It's before King David comes in. So,
but there's a corollary to that, because even though King Agag, who was the king of the Amalekites, was saved by Saul, he took him to Samuel, and Samuel hacked him to death. But some of Agag's sons left. The seed of Amalek survived. Decades later, when the Israelis, the Israeli nation now are prisoners of Babylon, Esther, a Jewish princess, is queen. And Esther, one of the descendants of King Agag, the seed of Amalek, is now an advisor to the Babylonian king. And he's plotting to have all the Israelis who are in captivity killed. And instead, Esther turns the tables, gets the king drunk, gives her authority to kill all of this advisor and his men. 75,000 people were killed by the Jews, and they celebrate this every year in the celebration of Purim. Purim is a celebration of the completion of the genocide of the Amalekites. The seed of Amalek was slaughtered in Babylon, finishing the job. And this is why when Netanyahu says, "Remember Amalek," and the soldiers of Israel say, we will kill the seed of Amalek, they're celebrating the completion of the genocide of the Palestinian people. This is a sickness that goes beyond belief.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's heavy.
Yeah, those are my book of Bible stories when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't really framed that way in my childhood Bible tapes I read to go to sleep at night.
So, I was just in Berlin, and talk about what a guilty conscience will do to a people. They couldn't support Israel's genocide. It's so funny. Whenever there's a genocide, they're on the wrong side of it, right? So they were for genociding the Jews at first, and so now because of that guilty conscience, they're for genociding the Palestinians. The Bible's actually a popular book for a reason, because there's some great stuff in there to justify whatever the hell you want. That's how we got our great nation, and like all these wacky theories of what tribe of what that the natives here came from. That all that bullshit's the same. Everybody uses it as it's like war propaganda. It's been recycled over and over again. So just this is this your Substack? Is that where this is?
Yes, that's my Substack.
So this is your Substack. We've explained it pretty good. Everybody should check this out. So you say this is going to go down in history as one of the greatest victories of this century. It's a pretty young. So,
the reversal of deterrence supremacy. understanding that Israel's entire posture vis-a-vis the world is based upon Israeli deterrent supremacy. And Israel's been living this for some time. People were afraid to attack Israel because of the consequences that would accrue. Iran, in this attack, without killing any civilians, without doing horrific damage, without exposing itself to follow-on actions, reversed that, and Iran emerged from this with deterrent supremacy of their own. This is one of the greatest, if this was a wrestling match, this would be one of the most awesome reversals that ever occurred in wrestling history.
Okay. Well, that's a great article. Everybody should check out your Substack. I really appreciate you making time for us today, for filling us in on what's exactly going on. What a crazy show this has been today. Iran has the greatest victory ever. Israel's actually lost the war in Gaza. I did not expect this. I did not expect any of this, but
Well, wait until Bibi don't make it World War III. I would.
But there's also a
wait for
chance
that
that Bibi could turn this into World War III.
There is a chance. I'm not going to sleep well tonight. In fact, I know what I'm going to be doing tonight is staying up glued to the TV and glued to my damn cell phone, reading my Twitter feed, because I'm very nervous about what's going to happen tonight. I hope we get through this. I hope there's no war and all that. But tonight's a very, very dangerous night.
Is there any leadership in Israel that is not on board for starting World War III? Is there, like, if someone, let's, for instance, if Bibi disappeared somehow, would, like, if the CIA wanted to disappear him to stop World War III, would that stop World War III?
No, unfortunately, when I was in Israel back in the 90s, they had a prime minister named Yitzhak Rabin, and he was a man who was pursuing peace. It's an imperfect peace. I've learned since then that Oslo wasn't everything it was meant to be, but at least he was talking about peace with the Palestinians and the potential of a Palestinian state. He was assassinated in November of 1995 by a right-wing Israeli fanatic who was loyal to Benjamin Netanyahu. You're seeing the pattern here. The assassination of Yitzhak Rabin brought to an end what I would call the era of Israeli normalcy, where normal people could live who wanted to live in peaceful coexistence. Starting in 1995 on, Israel started absorbing hundreds of thousands of immigrants from Russia and Ukraine who viewed the Palestinians as subhumans, animals. They strengthened Netanyahu's hands. And since, for the next 2.5 decades, Netanyahu has transformed Israel from a nation that once had rational thinking people into a nation that thinks just like himself. This is my way of answering your question. If you remove Netanyahu, you're going to be replacing somebody who believes the same things that Netanyahu believes. There's no good Israelis today. This is why I say Israel has lost the right to exist. I know that gets me in a lot of trouble, but there's no hope for Israel. Israel is an evil nation that populated by a people that have lost touch with reality. When you have a population that views themselves as being superior to their neighbors, superior to the rest of the world, who believe that God has vested them with unique rights, I think maybe it's time that they be divested of these rights and they be reinvited back into the mass of humanity.
Well, you know what I realized when I was over there in Berlin is that I went to the bunker. And anyway, but he referred to, they used to refer to themselves as the master race.
Yeah.
Well, now the Zionists refer to themselves as the chosen people.
Yeah.
Isn't that the same mentality?
Same thing. There's no difference. Once you view yourself as superior, everybody else is inferior, they become lesser. Look, the Ukrainian nationalists do the same thing. They call Russians orcs, and they view the Russians. This is how Stepan Bandera could motivate Western Ukrainians into slaughtering 110,000 Poles who were subhuman, slaughtering 200,000 Ukrainians, slaughtering 120,000 Russians because they were subhuman. And it's the same mentality that exists in Ukraine today. Anytime you have a nation, and this is why I always caution my fellow Americans to be careful about the God bless America notion. Because the issue, once you say that God has blessed us, does that mean God has damned the rest of the world? Is the rest of the world inferior? We believe in American exceptionalism. There's very little differentiation between American exceptionalism and the Übermensch, or the chosen people. It's the same disease of the mind that says that somehow we are better than everybody else. We're not. We're humans. We're all equal. We're all, if you're religious, we're all created in the image of God, if that's what you believe in. All of us are created in the image of God. And yet somehow we have these nations, the United States, Israel, the Western Ukrainians, the Nazis, the Japanese had this, all these nations that believe that they are somehow imbued by destiny to be world leaders at the expense of the rest of the world. It's a very dangerous mindset, a very dangerous philosophy.
Yeah, you know, when I say God bless America, I mean just America. I don't want any of that going to Canada, and God forbid any of it going over to Mexico.
Just for Mexicans.
Just for us. It's just for us. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Scott Ritter, thank you so much. Again, it's always a fascinating conversation, and appreciate your work and your insight. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's go to a break. We'll be right back. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you hate shitty coffee? I, for one, really hate shitty coffee, which is why I'm excited to introduce to you a company that's revolting against shitty coffee, and it's called the 1775 Coffee Company. Now, I haven't had it yet because I only drink decaf. Steph has had it. Steph, how do you like it?
I really like it. You know what? I have a French press, and so I've been using my French press and totally enjoying it. It's delicious. It's smooth. It's smooth.
So 1775, the world awake. In 1775, the world awakened to a new era. And now it's 1775 Coffee Company is bringing you a coffee that embodies that revolutionary spirit. Crafted with passion and precision, our beans are ethically and exclusively sourced from the finest coffee beans farms of Bolivia. Didn't know that. 1775 Coffee Company's farm-to-cup journey ensures the highest quality of authenticity and sustainability from start to finish. With each sip, your palate will recognize and appreciate the dedication and passion that goes into crafting this single-sourced brew. 1775 Coffee Company takes pride in offering customers a truly exceptional coffee experience with their premium coffee collection. But their dedication to this revolution extends beyond the realm of taste. Safeguarding freedom of speech is critical right now, which is why 1775 Coffee Company has joined forces with Rumble in defense of one of our most fundamental rights, freedom of speech. Coffee that's sure to awaken all your senses, including the sense of freedom. So choose 1775 Coffee by going to 1775coffee.com/litter. That's LITTER, and use the code LITTER for 10% off the checkout on your first order. 1775 Coffee, brewed to perfection, crafted with revolution.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you.
Shut it down.
If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.